Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Curtis Boyd. Curtis, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Thomas.
Thank you for being here. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I build technology to identify fake reviews for both consumers and business owners on sites like Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor, and what have you.
No, it is a topic which I am interested in, but I don't tend to hear that much about it. So I'm aware that it's a problem, but yeah, you're the first person who I've spoken to who sort of specializes in this area. One of the questions that I did want to open with, if that's okay, is about the concept of why fake reviews happen. So I would imagine, like the obvious one that you go to is competition, right? But I'm interested in what the breakdown in your view is. What percentage do you give credit to competition, and what are the other instances?
Absolutely. So in 2020, Google published on their blog that they removed 55 million reviews off of Google Maps, illegitimate fake reviews off of their Google Maps platform. That's 160,000 fake reviews per day. Now, based on that 55 million number, we tried to analyze as many, we don't have all the data on this, but from an observation point of view, from using our data sets and looking at all the types of reviews that are on the internet, the overwhelming majority of illegitimate reviews are ones that are paid for by businesses. So it's actually the number one type of fake review are normally purchased, just astroturfing. Me, there's people on the internet that will sell these reviews and their profiles for anywhere from $10 to $50 per review on any site you could any site you could want. If you Googled the phrase "buy positive Google review," you'll find tons of shops. These little e-commerce pop-up sites, and you can purchase fake reviews, and it's very accessible. It's a very big problem. Google, like I said, Google alone just last year removed 55 million fake reviews. Um, yeah, that's definitely the biggest type of review fraud. They normally do it when they create these fake listings, right? And they're trying to generate leads, or they're trying to enhance a business's reputation, synthetically. The next type uh, is when essentially a consumer is lying. So it's a real person, but they're distorting their actual experience in order to get something, right? So consumers will, while they're upset about something, will write online and they won't describe a complete picture. They'll essentially put their spin on it until they get what they want. And it's really unfortunate, but it happens
What would be an
all day,
example of
every
someone
day.
trying to get something that they want?
Absolutely. So it's really common in certain industries. You'll find it happen more and more in high ticket industries, like for doctors, for lawyers, for contractors. But what they'll do is they'll describe a kind of a more normal experience. Like, yeah, I worked with them, and everything was good in the beginning, and then they didn't do this, and this, and they'll kind of spout off a few things, and the business owner will address the entire review, and it normally will sound like let's say the reviewer's name is like John, I did that and for you. You wanted half of your money back, and we can't afford to give you half your money back. Like, that it we'd be out of work. It's just not possible. I'm sorry. Like, but and sometimes in the review they'll even say, I'm going to leave my review here until I get what I'm asking for, until I get a refund, until this business essentially bends to my will. And it's really just another type of extortion. It's pretty terrible.
Well, I was going to phrase it as almost like a negotiation. Um, but I mean, what at what point? Because I know that you deal in like fake reviews, fraudulent reviews in a way.
Right.
At what point does it cross over into that with you, in your view? Or would you
So
say if someone is wanting something in return, then that's where it does cross the line?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. As soon as a customer leverages reviews in order to get something, now it depends if they're being truthful or not. Because if they're being truthful in their review, then that's like they're not lying. Like that was their experience, right? But when they're not telling the whole story, or when they're misrepresenting their words, or they're just blatantly lying, that's when they've crossed the line into friendly fraud, right? Where they're really yeah, it's kind of like, if you think of like chargebacks, credit cards and chargebacks, in that industry, they call it friendly fraud when you get someone who and they charge your credit card back. I kind of look at it in a similar way, like who this customer is, and they're writing this fake review in order to get something back. It's pretty it's I look at it as like a very washed down version of fraud. But yeah, I think that these people have really crossed the line, and now they're trying to extort the business. And at that point, that's when we can get administrators involved in getting that content down.
Interesting. There is an element of what you do, and it's removing spam as well. Do you get many like spam reviews, or is it mainly?
Absolutely.
You said it's majority is competition.
Yeah. So on top of businesses posting positive fake reviews for themselves and their customers, trying to extort them, you get competitor reviews. It's less common, but it happens. And the same people who sell positive 5-star reviews, they're starting to sell 1-star reviews because they figured out they can charge more and do the same work. It's like they're like, wait a second, I can charge 10 times as much for the same amount of like work, and people will pay it. And it's like, yeah, they will. So it's funny on those sites, the same exact ones where if you Google by, positive Google review, you'll see the cost of a 5-star review, and then you'll see the cost of a 1-star review. It's comical. Um, so yeah, competitors buy those for each other all the time. It's very common in really, really competitive niches. Personal injury attorneys have a big problem with it. Criminal defense attorneys, cosmetic surgeons, some contractors. They go after each other and they purchase fake reviews for one another. And so we'll have to deal with that. Ex-employees, current employees, writing reviews when they shouldn't is also very, very common. When you see, especially when they get let go and they get their families involved, we see it a lot. Business owner will call us and they'll say, "Hey, like this was never even a customer. That we let go of them 2 months ago, and they got their friends and family to write terrible reviews about us." And they'll know intimate facts about the business that are kind of embarrassing too. So
Mm.
it can get pretty sticky into the weeds.
It's really interesting. I didn't know it was such a well, in that detail anyway. I didn't know it was such a big problem.
Yeah, yeah. Lately here in the U.S., and probably all over the world too. COVID's been opening and closing stuff, right? So some states will open, some states will close, and we're kind of going into this remission period too. But um, in the wedding venue industry, what happens is they'll book their venues out, right? And they'll take deposits, non-refundable deposits, and then COVID legislation will close everything down so you can't have your weddings anymore. And now thousands of people have already booked their weddings and they're not getting their refunds. So there was a huge wave of uh, consumers who got really pissed off because they booked this place and they're not getting their a refund, and they're not getting their wedding. and them and their entire bridal party are slamming these venues online, and they're doing some damage. I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of reviews. So yeah, that's been interesting to witness as well.
Yeah, I'm. I mean, it's a little bit like crazy to start off the conversation this way. It's intimidating, I suppose, as a business owner as well.
Yeah, it's it's a business owner. It's the odds are kind of stacked against you if you do something wrong. But long term, there's definitely ways to overcome. I think anything. You just gotta be persistent, be diligent, and hire the people who know what they're doing.
I have had one negative review in my time, and yeah, since then, like three different people have mentioned it. So this is only one review, and the one review was because I didn't want to work with that customer anymore, problem customer. So I was like, okay, we don't have to do business with everyone. I don't want to do business with you anymore. I could have been probably less blunt than I was, but that's how it went down. And yeah, since then, just that one review has got attention from three future prospects. So I can only imagine what, I don't know, dozens or hundreds would do.
Well, yeah, that's true. And it sounds like this review isn't all that bad because the content sounds like it's describing you firing them versus them firing you. It sounds like they complained that you dropped them as a client because of stuff, right? So the issue wasn't the issue wasn't you and your performance. I don't know what the review says, but the issue is essentially that you no longer wanted to work with them. That I'm an advocate that bad reviews can actually be great for businesses,
Mm.
because it can call out a certain type of customer that you don't want, and certain people align with with these negative reviews. Like, let's say you respond to that review and you say, it just wasn't a great fit. I had, I knew I didn't want to work for you, and I wanted to work for this, and that. I apologize. I think it's going to be the best for the long run, and I wish you nothing but success in the future. Right? That review and that response is certainly going to align with other types of businesses out there that are like, all right, like this guy's not just taking everyone's money. He has like a very, uh, he has a very specific customer he likes to work with, or a specific type of business owner. So yeah, I think it also lets people know that your reviews are real too when you have some bad reviews.
Mm. Are there any platforms or places that are particularly difficult to get rid of reviews on?
You know, they're all difficult. They're all hard. They're not like, over the top hard, but I would say that funny enough, Trustpilot is actually really difficult, um, considering it's a newer platform and they don't have that many reviews compared to Google and Yelp. Um, Google and Yelp like have been around for so long by now that their moderation team is used to the drill. Like they know they're really good at responding to queues, following their terms of service. I think Trustpilot's still getting their act together, so to speak, in content moderation, as well as their back end stuff. But yeah, I feel like Trustpilot's a bit out of out of uh, out of alignment when it comes to how easy it is to dispute
Mm.
illegitimate reviews.
Well, I really liked your story, um, and I'm hoping to get into that just after one quick question.
Sure.
And the story was around, and the context of this question is that I once tried to get a spam review removed for a different company
Mhm.
because I was doing work for that company, and it was a one-star review on Google My Business, but there was no description, and the business was like, we don't even know who this person is, so they responded to it and they said, here's this link, can you see what you can do about removing it? And let me tell you,
Mhm.
I would have gladly outsourced the work to someone like yourself because it is not easy trying to communicate with some of these platforms. Or so have you got anything to add on that?
Yes. So, reviews with no content are actually only allowed on Google. Google's the only one that does it, and it's frustrating. Um, Generally, if your business and you're being attacked, normally you're attacked by more than one person, and it's easy to kind of group them all together and then open a file with Google and say, "Hey Google, like look at this attack. Like it looks coordinated, like, it looks and smells like a duck, right?" When it's just one review, um, I'm not saying it's less likely fraudulent, but usually when fraudsters come after you, they do it more in numbers. But I don't know. Sometimes these one-off things happen from people who are upset with you, scorned lovers. Like just in the last 2 weeks, I've had two or three phone calls from people they got broken up with, right? Or they broke up with someone, and then them and their friends went online and wrote bad reviews for an employee at a company, and it was a big company too. It was really inappropriate. But yeah, what you can do is you can go to the Google My Business community and open up a ticket and just use the markers like, hey, I got a review. I believe it's completely illegitimate, and a Google product expert can help you. They're essentially volunteers, and they're people who help, people, business owners with their GMB listings, and they answer questions for free. And we work pretty closely with one of them. His name's Jason Brown. He's a platinum level Google product expert, and he's normally on these forums all the time, and he's usually more than happy to help.
Okay. Well, thanks for that.
Sure.
Just before we go on to your story, how much do you ever get anyone who's like trying to ask you to remove bad reviews when actually they're just legitimate reviews that they don't want on their profile?
All the time. All the time. And I tell them all the exact same thing when they call and they only have a few reviews, and it looks all normal. Like these look like regular complaints. I tell them to stop reaching out to reputation experts and start reaching out to customer experience experts. I tell them that they need to stop marketing and they need to start being remarkable. Their problem isn't reputation. Their problem is customer experience. They need to focus on delivering 5-star experiences to their customers if they want 5-star reviews. They need to own up to what they did wrong. They need to evolve their company and identify what part of their machine is providing bad experiences, right? Because it's normally the same problem point for companies. There's usually a problem, two or three. Sometimes it's more, of course, if you haven't solved these things. But usually you can pinpoint where in the customer journey is this business machine. Where does it need oil, so to speak?
Mm.
Occasionally we'll have business owners who immediately transition on the call and be like, "Wow, like you're right. Like I hadn't thought about it like that." Most of them, they know, and they just hang up, and they're off, they're off to the next, and we're okay with that because that's not our customer.
Yeah, choosing your client, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I did want to ask you about your story because I think it's a great one. And it's well, I don't know why I'm saying how it starts because you're the best person to tell it. So if you would you like to share what your story is, and then I can maybe jump in with some questions.
Sure, sure. So, yeah, my entrepreneur story starts almost 9 years ago. I was a nursing assistant in a hospital. I bathed patients, I cleaned them up, I took care of them, when they couldn't take care of themselves. So I was really at the very bottom of the pecking order in the hospital. And I actually loved the job. I loved helping people. I loved taking care of people. I was pretty good at it. And Anyway, one day a doctor came into the unit, and he started complaining to me about a bad review he'd gotten. He was in a bad mood. And I was like, all right, I'm in a bad mood too. Like I started complaining about my student loans. And he's like, well, Curtis, if you can get rid of my bad review, I will. certainly take care of your student loans. And I kind of rolled my eyes at him. I was like, doctor, like I owe about $32,000. And he rolled his eyes right back at me and he said, Curtis, I probably lost 150,000 this week from this fake review. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I know I've lost 10 consults already, and I charge ten to $15,000 in my private practice for a surgery. And I'm like, I didn't know doctors made that kind of money. That's insane. I had no idea. I worked in a hospital. I had no idea. And I was like, okay, doctor, like I'm not an expert in anything. I played a lot of video games when I was younger. I'm good at computers. I could probably figure this out. So, I go home. I tell my mom. My mom also works at the hospital, and she's like, yeah, I know who the doctor is. He's a pretty stand-up guy. I'm sure he meant it. I'm a nursing assistant. I have no idea what are contracts like. What's paperwork? I have no idea what any of this stuff is. So I call the private practice and I talked to the secretary, and she asked her if the doctor was serious about his offer. She told me how he hired a lawyer, how he hired a consultant, like to help him, and no one could help him. And I'm like, okay. I felt like Sherlock Holmes. I was on the case, and for the next 48 to 72 hours, I did everything I could to get that review off, emailing, calling people, got nowhere, absolutely nowhere, couldn't do a thing. And I'm like, why is this so hard? Like this shouldn't be this hard. I've done nothing but try to do one thing, and it's just get this fake review down, and there's nothing that could be done that can't be. So anyway, I was 23 years old. I was broke. I had about $800 in my bank account at the time. I spent half of it on a plane ticket to San Francisco to stake out employees who worked at a particular company where the review was on. And as people walked in and out of the building, I would approach them. I'd say, "Hey, excuse me, do you work at this company? Do you work here? I need help." And they'd be like, "Do you need money or something?" And I'm like, I look at what I was dressed. I'm like, "No, like I I I don't need money. I'm not crazy. I have a doctor in Los Angeles. They have a fake review and they need it removed. And I don't know how to do it. I need your help." And they'd be like, "No, no, no." Some people would laugh. Some people would be like, "What? You came here from Los Angeles just to like yes?" And for the first day, got nowhere. I mean, I could tell like when I was talking to people that they knew what to do, right? So I kind of had hope. I'm like, some of these people I can tell they know how to help me, but they're not helping me, and that's okay because I'm gonna stay here another day. So I checked into a hostel and I stayed the night and I did the same thing the whole next day and still got nowhere. And finally, on the third day, I finally was able to convince someone to sit down and chat with me. She was really nice. She's like, "Yeah, I know how to help you." I'm like, "Yes!" So she took me down the street. There was a Starbucks. We sat down, and she spent 20 minutes step by step describing like what I needed to do, in detail. And I went back to my hostel. I hammered it out, and about 48 hours later, I had a check for $32,000. That doctor also happened to be on the board of directors for the entire hospital, and he referred me to every single one of them. He set me up with a CPA. He told me how much to charge. Um, he actually went straight to the marketing team at the medical center and was like, "Look, you should probably just hire him rather than like having us doctors like pay him. Why don't you guys just hire him on and have him take care of all the doctors?" And they did. So that way it was just one customer. It was the medical center rather than all 700 physicians independently, which was really nice. And it's funny because I used to show up at that hospital, in scrubs, ready to go in, and then all of a sudden I'm showing up in there like in a nice shirt and pants, and I'm like, oh, like, hey guys, I know I'm not here in my scrubs anymore. I'm here to like talk reputation. It was pretty comical. My brother's a nurse, my sister's a nurse, my mom's a nurse. Everyone in my family are nurses, and they're like, "So Curtis, you're not in your scrubs?" I'm like, "No, no." They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm actually going to the administration office, and I'm doing another presentation today on what we're trying to do this month." And they're like, "So you're not a nurse?" I'm like, "No." "So you're not going to be a nurse anymore?" I was like, "No." They're like, "What about nursing school?" "I'm going to graduate, but probably not going to be a nurse after that." So anyway, it was a strange transition for them. Um, and one physician network over the years turned into a few, and my reputation practice grew. I got really busy. I trained. I wanted to I learned how to delegate and assign tasks to people. What I found ended up happening over and over is I would train people how to do what I do, and then they would just leave and start their own reputation practice. It happened twice. And at first I was like really upset about it, and I took it really personally. And I had kind of this scarcity mindset where I needed every customer in the world, that they all had to be mine. Uh, and Anyway, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try. I'm gonna think of something else. At the same time, I was thinking about like AI and hearing all these TED talks with Elon Musk and how AI was gonna take our jobs. And I was like, could AI replace me? Like, could I be replaced by AI? Can computers look at reviews the same way I do and flag and dispute them? And I was like, wait a second, they totally could. So I went back to school for coding. I went back to school, and with a little bit of help, I ended up building Objection Co, the software company, which does exactly that. It uses technology to do, not only do I not have to read the reviews anymore, it reads the reviews, but the software also disputes the reviews too. So it will literally create these flags with Google, with Yelp, with all these review site administrators. So it gets to do the fulfillment while I get to focus on growing my business and spend more time with my 3-year-old son, which is really fantastic. Yeah,
That's for the
yeah,
story.
it's a fun one.
I love the story. I think it's amazing, and the commitment. I can imagine at your young age and being that much in debt and thinking, if this is that valuable and it's fallen into my lap, I'm going to go for it 100%. And you just did it.
Absolutely. I did the math and I was like, wait a second, this is 2 years worth of money. Like at the rate I made $11 an hour. At the rate I was saving, this would have taken me 2 years to make. And I was like, 2 years of my life, like I could do this. Maybe like if I got lucky in a week or two. It ended up taking a little bit longer than that, and I had to actually go places, but uh, yeah, that 20, just taking the initiative to meet the right person and spending 20 minutes with them changed my life. I mean, dramatically. And yeah, it certainly was an adventure.
If you had to guess, do you think that anyone's been to that building trying to do the same thing since you?
I should think so. I mean,
Do you think?
I talk to some pretty desperate people a lot who just don't know what to do. I can only imagine other doctors, like the doctor who challenged me, has presented the same challenge to other people. Like, hey, look, I will pay you a ridiculous sum of money to deal with this problem. You just have to fix it, right? You just need to actually do it. And so I'd imagine people have been presented with the same like offer. It's just I I I'd hope I'd hope people did. I don't know, but if I were local and I lived closer within driving distance, I mean, I lived 9-hour drive. It wasn't that feasible, but yeah, especially for people who get presented with that problem locally, I'd hope they'd do it. Me, I'm not shy. I don't mind walking up to strangers. I don't mind, like, if I don't know something, I'm like, it's for me, like, I guess humility is pretty high. Like, it's no big deal that I don't know it, and if I need help, I'm gonna ask you for it. So, yeah, I just try to take it in that mindset. And also, this doctor promised me it was fake, like something. It just wasn't like right. Like something really irked me about the whole scenario. And then you put on that financial motivation. I would have stayed. I would have stayed longer. I would
Camping
have.
outside the building.
Seriously, I may as well have just brought a tent and camped out with a big sign. You know,
Would have
yeah,
been worth the time though, wouldn't it? I mean, that's a significant amount of money to pay off.
yeah, exactly. It was huge for me. I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, I mean, I'd never held $30,000 in cash before. I actually asked them to put it in cash just so I could feel it, and it would like be tangible. It was three stacks of $10,000, and I'm like, oh my god, like so heavy. So, but yeah, it was fun. Ended up paying most of my student loans off with that, but I saved some for some celebration money.
Well, you deserved it. Um, but you you said it makes me think about asking you about the nursing side of things. So your whole
Uh-huh.
nursing, and you studied to be a nurse. Does any part of you miss it? And was it difficult to walk away?
It was because, I don't want to say I had like an existential crisis, but like my identity was really challenged during that transition. It's like, who am I and what am I on this planet to do? Like I'd spent so many years in school preparing to be a nurse, an RN, and now I was going through the case where I was solving so many problems for other doctors and other business owners that like my existence was shifting from like one of helping people in a clinical setting to helping people in the outside of the hospital, and I enjoyed it. Like I loved problem solving and figuring out, helping these doctors. Certainly the money was a great pull too because I was making, going from $11 an hour to, you know, close to closer to six figures in monthly recurring revenue. I was like, this is insane, right? I had no idea people made this type of money, and I figured that my family would understand. That was also hard for them to kind of swallow. Like, well, he's not a nurse anymore. He's doing this reputation management consulting. You know, yeah, it was enjoyable, but it was strange. I also volunteered as a camp nurse for Camp Ronald McDonald, and it's certainly something I enjoy participating in. Um, I haven't done it as much since my wife and I had a kid, but right before that, I was trying to do a few sessions each year as the camp nurse, but. Yeah, I do miss it. To answer your question, yeah, I miss kind of. I used to give the best bed bath. I don't know if that sounds strange or if you know what that is, but it's when you bathe someone in the bed and you clean them all up and you take really good care of them. I would always get these compliment cards because I would take the time to like lotion everyone up and do a really really good job just because like I enjoyed spending time with people and making sure they were super clean and comfortable and I'd shampoo their hair. you know, I don't know if like some people would be like, I haven't had a shampoo in like a month, and that was the first time that I shampooed all my patients' hair, just because I could, because I knew how good it felt like to have your hair clean, even though you're in a sticky hospital. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I still miss it, but there's pros and cons to everything.
Before, well, for a long time, I had the opinion that reputation management firms were there to manipulate the reviews, not necessarily to be I would perhaps describe you as maybe a Robin Hood person. You're fighting the fraudsters in a way. To what degree is that an accurate opinion?
Completely accurate.
Okay.
It's completely accurate. And I'm ashamed to say in the beginning, uh, for me, it was more along the lines of how could I serve? Like if in the very beginning, if a doctor would have asked me, Curtis, I got kind of this real review and I need it removed, I would have said, yes, sir. Like I'm gonna try and take care of that for you. But now my opinion and my view on life has changed. I'd be like, no, like doctor, you need to address that. Like that's a real complaint. That's real feedback. You need to learn from that real feedback. And now I'm not like trying to teach people lessons, but I'm trying to help them understand, best practices. And these are my best practices that I practice, and I live it. So, um, Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that statement. There are white hat tactics and there are black hat tactics, right? So white hat tactics, everything's on the up and up. You're doing everything by the books, everything's good. Black hat tactics is where you're not playing by the rules, you're doing shady stuff, and you're doing it in order to get the results for your customer, especially if you're a results-based company. In reputation management, there are so many black hat tactics that you could use in order to accomplish a goal, right? So, um, in reputation management, I've actually written articles about this black hat versus white hat review removal. It's on my blog. There are like, if a review doesn't qualify for removal organically, there are things you can do externally to make it qualify for removal, right? And it's shady stuff. It's shady business. We don't touch it, and we don't touch it with the 10-foot pole. Now there are certainly lots of companies out there that will, and they're very expensive, but they'll do it. Um, we just, using software for us, everything has to be on the up and up. Everything has to be, easy, and the use case has to be super solid. Anytime there's sticky stuff going on, like if there's, fraud, sometimes manual intervention will have to help them manually, which is fine. We're happy to do that. But anytime, people are like, look, I just want to make this real review disappear. It's like, no, no, no. They're like, well, do you know how? It's like, sure. They're like, okay, how? It's like, why? And we'll try and explain to them, like, look, you might take temporarily solve this problem, but unless you fix your business, it's just going to happen again and again and again. You've got a broken wheel. Let's fix the wheel. Let's don't try and fix the river, right? So to speak.
Well, I would imagine it's a little bit more sustainable for you as well. So if you're only dealing with those types of, well, I don't know if sustainable is the right word. It's probably more, you're more infused to do a good job, if someone is actually the victim of of a fraud review or whatever it might be.
Yeah, not only that, but having these best practices in our business and our goals and the way that we do things allowed us to have bigger partners. We're about to integrate into Yext, which is a publicly traded company, into their third-party marketplace, integrating into Zapier and other places where we can connect our APIs to their existing set of tools. So making sure that your place of business has, really high standards of ethics, really high standards of best practices, allows you to partner with some of the bigger guys and when they do their due diligence on you and make sure that you're legit. So it certainly helps those types of deals as well.
Is there anything that you feel that I haven't asked that would be valuable to the people listening?
Um, well, you know, in reputation, I always like to say, to stop marking and be remarkable. Work on your customer experience, work on blowing them away, right? If you're worried about your reputation, focus on that first. Then the tips and the tricks will, for how to remove reviews or how to SMS your customers the right way, that'll come later. Focus on customer experience first. Um, and for any like new entrepreneurs who are thinking of starting a business, it's it's an adventure. If you're ready for an adventure and learning and nonstop, banging your head against the wall until you figure it out, it's certainly a lot of fun. Start with a problem, right? Solve that problem, get case studies and scale and start to scale up. There are so many well documented ways to build businesses these days. There's so many free tools and free, uh, you know, so many mentors out there that would love to help you, and then of course paid consultants who are amazing, right? When you actually pay a consultant to help grow your business. So I've done all of those things, and each of them was helpful in their own unique way.
Okay. And would you mind sharing your goals for your business?
Sure. So we're releasing a new product here pretty soon for consumers, so that consumers can identify fake reviews. We're hoping to have around 8 figures in sales, and we're really, really excited to develop, our to develop that as a product. Versus like removing reviews, we're really excited to help. protect consumers from scam artists and business owners who pay for their reputations.
Well, well done for all of that.
Thank you.
Curtis Boyd, where is the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. If you're having any issues with fake reviews or just want to chat about fake reviews, happy to start a dialogue and meet you there.
I've really enjoyed talking to you. Again, I think the story is amazing. I loved it. And thanks for all the value.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Thomas.